quiet. Let's unmute it. There we go. Hi. Yep. My microphone still sucks a lot, so I will just do my best. And if you don't hear me, then that's okay. I'm not probably saying anything terribly important. I'll start the podcast now. For those who have not listened to this before, it's Sawbones, a marital tour of misguided medicine, done by Justin McElroy and his wife, and it's very charming.
Sawbones is a show about medical history,
and
sometimes
nothing the hosts say
should
gross,
be taken as medical advice or opinion.
But it's interesting,
for fun.
so I like it.
Can't you just have fun for an hour and not try to diagnose your mystery boil? We think you've earned it. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy a moment of distraction from that weird growth. You're worth it.
All right.
Got that chat.
Song is about some books. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Let's go.
And welcome to Sawbones, a marital tour of misguided medicine. I'm your co-host, Justin McElroy.
And I'm Sydney McElroy.
Well, Sid, we've had our finger on the pulse the past couple of weeks.
That's true.
Real plugged into the zeitgeist, and you said that this week you want to take it back, take it old school.
That's right. I wanted to step back. We've been doing some trendy topics, which I think are interesting because everybody's talking about them and everybody wants to know more about them. But there's a lot of stuff. There's so many things in medicine that are common and have a long history and a lot of stuff to talk about. And I get it. I'm consistently amazed that we haven't done it yet on this show. But that's also a good thing because maybe our show can be infinite.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love that.
Maybe that's what I'm learning. And the topic we're going to discuss this week is one of those. I don't know how we haven't talked about it yet because it's also one of our most requested topics, and that's thyroid disease. I know that doesn't sound as sexy and exciting as raw water and Tide Pods.
I'm loving it. You sort of said right before we started, it was funny. You said that you didn't include a section on what the thyroid is or how it works because you sort of assumed that everybody just knew that. To which I kind of did. I took a bunch of water in my mouth so I could do a spit take and shake my head violently to say, no, Sydney, I don't have any. I literally couldn't get a hemisphere of the body where the thyroid is. I don't know if it's in your brain or your butt.
It's in your neck.
Great. See, I would have been wrong on both counts.
Yeah, that surprises me because it
does it.
Well, okay. Here's my rationale. This is very reasonable. It's common to have problems with your thyroid. That's one of the more common disorders. And I get asked about it by patients a lot. I have like a lot of people who request that I test them for it. So I guess my impression is that it's out there in the popular medical knowledge.
Right.
Is my impression.
I'm not saying that no one knows. I'm saying that like Hoops doesn't, and I'm here to speak for the trees, by which I mean people like me.
Well, a lot of people did know about it and requested it, and I'm going to list them all now. That's Kim, Shannon, Miranda, Megan, Brian, Locke, Karen, Kate, Emily, Ryan, Jill, Sylvie, Rebecca, Jack, Margaret, Ann, Caitlin, Letitia, and David. Thank you all for recommending this topic. Like I said, I don't know how we haven't covered it yet. So let me explain. The thyroid gland, if you don't know, is a gland that consists, it's an endocrine gland. It consists of two lobes and an isthmus that connects them.
Okay.
Little piece of tissue that connects the two lobes. And it's right in the front of your throat, of your neck. It's right there in the front. And the primary function, it does some other things, but the primary function of the thyroid gland is the secretion of thyroid hormones. Thyroid hormones are largely responsible for aspects of your metabolism.
Okay.
So, and this may be why I get the request to test for it a lot, is because if you don't have enough thyroid hormone, one of the major symptoms, two of them, I guess, that I get asked about a lot are weight gain and fatigue. And those are big concerns that I spend a lot of time with my patients discussing. So maybe that's why I get that request a lot, is people thinking like, gosh, is there something else wrong? And they're looking it up and they're finding thyroid disease as a common cause. So your thyroid gland secretes these hormones. It is stimulated by your brain to do so. And I think it's important just to take a second to explain that a lot of the, especially in the endocrine system, but a lot of glands in your body work on sort of a feedback loop.
Okay.
So your brain releases signals to your thyroid gland to say, hey, make thyroid hormone. The body needs it. And your thyroid gland responds by making thyroid hormone. And then that thyroid hormone goes back to the brain to say, hey, don't worry, I'm here. The gland is working. Your job is done. Now, what can happen if the thyroid gland isn't doing what it's supposed to do is your brain just keeps sending more and more signals.
Yeah.
Which is part of how we test for and diagnose thyroid disease, is looking for increased numbers of these signals and decreased amount of this hormone and so on and so forth. I think that kind of idea that a lot of systems in your body work on feedback loops is important to understanding this.
Okay.
Okay. So while there are different disorders of the thyroid gland, largely grouped as either not enough thyroid hormone or too much thyroid hormone, the one that has the most history, I would say, is the goiter, which is an enlargement, a diffuse enlargement of the thyroid gland.
Something about iodine.
Yes, and it has something to do with iodine. So we'll get into that. And the goiter, I think that there's the most history associated with it simply because you can see it, right? It's a big swelling in your neck. And you can look up pictures of goiters and see some really impressive swellings.
Sounds like a cool afternoon.
Well, I'm just
What
saying.
are you doing? Hey, Dan, what are you doing? Looking for impressive swellings in my Google image search of
goiters.
Goiters, because Sydney said it was worth doing.
I'm just saying, there's some really impressive goiters throughout history. So if you look to like ancient paintings and drawings and depictions, you'll see lots of people who have goiters. It's one of the most depicted, probably, medical conditions throughout history. Again, because it's really easy to see. Mm-hmm. And throughout history, it's been like a slightly swollen, rounded neck has either been kind of sexy and associated with attractiveness, or something's wrong.
Right, but still sexy.
Maybe.
I mean, something's wrong.
That's fine if that's your thing. If
That's
you
a
like,
sexy goiter.
if you like round necks, hey.
I got to see if sexygoiters.com is taken real quick.
Well, while you're doing that,
Yeah.
I'm going to say that, again, this is probably because it was really easy to see and fairly common as well. Throughout history, the goiter is actually a pretty common medical condition because of iodine deficiency, which we will get into. You can find references to goiters in Chinese texts that date back to 2700 BCE. There are images of Cleopatra that appear to have a goiter. That's been disputed. Did she have a goiter or not? But there's some depictions of Cleopatra that would indicate she may have had a goiter.
I had no idea.
You can see paintings from the 7th century that show angels and saints and even depictions of Mary and Jesus as having goiters. Not that I'm saying they did. It was just a very common thing to paint people with goiters.
Yeah.
Jesus may have. I don't know. Maybe he had a goiter. There are mentions of different swellings of the neck. If you read ancient Chinese medical texts, specifically from 85 AD, we get these descriptions from a physician, Shui Chen Thi, who's talking about that some swellings of the neck are no big deal, and some swellings of the neck are very bad and can kill you. And he's probably distinguishing between goiters versus benign thyroid nodules. Sometimes you can just have nodular little bumpy areas of tissue that mean nothing. And then obviously you can get cancer of the thyroid as well. And so he was probably distinguishing between these different conditions, although it would be hard to do that at the time. If you go back to 1400 BCE, Ayurvedic medicine from India defined not only the goiter, but also broke it down into sometimes this thing in your neck tends to be over-functioning, sometimes it's under-functioning, which was really neat because we shouldn't have really been able to understand what any of that meant back then.
Right.
But they were able to tie different symptoms and maladies to that thing in your neck not working correctly.
Right.
Which was way ahead of their time. And if you look at the descriptions of underfunctioning and overfunctioning thyroid, they're pretty similar to what we would call hyper and hypothyroidism today.
Speaking of those words, did they not have found two prefixes that sounded a little more different? You really have to hit that hard
If you go
to make
up
it
and look
clear
down there,
which
it's
thyroidism you're talking
called,
about. And seeing as they were
sawbones.
the exact inverse of each other, it seems very problematic to me.
I will tell you that I recognize that because whenever I'm discussing it in my day job, I very clearly say hypo and hyper.
And people think
And people think there's a problem.
Yeah.
The treatments, though, are fairly different from what we would do today. Even though we see these ancient depictions of, these are pretty good descriptions of what this disease is, the treatments are not the same. So for hypothyroidism, see, I just did it.
Good.
You could try to prevent it by eating a lot of rice and barley and sugarcane juice and cucumber and milk.
All very a lot of sugar, a lot of oats.
Not necessarily something that would prevent hypothyroidism.
Yeah,
More
yeah.
than likely. The treatments largely consisted of some herbal medicines that were thought to like give you energy, vim, and vigor and boost your metabolism because fatigue and weight gain can be associated with low functioning thyroid. And then there were some that made you pee. Just give people diuretics because you can also get some swelling, especially in the legs, associated with
Would that work?
low thyroid. Probably not for the kind of swelling that you get from. I mean, maybe it might help a little, but it's not going to solve the problem. You need thyroid hormone.
All right.
So it's a different kind of swelling. It's called pretibial, meaning right in front of your tibias, so in front of your shin bones, you get swelling there, or mixed edema, we'll call it a lot. And it's a very particular swelling that is associated with low thyroid function.
All right.
Yeah. So it may have helped a little, but that'd be it. When it came to goiter, they thought that it was probably a result of the same swelling that they were seeing in like the legs. So they just thought, well, the neck's swollen too. So there was no thought that it was a different disorder. There was a different way to treat it. It would probably have been treated the same way, diuretics. Hippocrates thought that the thyroid was basically a big salivary gland.
That's true.
No.
Well, that's the shot, Sid.
No.
If that had panned out, I would have looked smart.
Did you really think that was where I was going with this? And it turns out he was right.
No, I mean, it's very rarely that, but what a cult shot that would have been, you know?
He thought that it just made juices that lubricate your respiratory passages. And that was pretty much it.
And that's
No other.
wrong. From
That is not what it does. Well, I think I've already said what it does.
Yeah,
so like,
well.
that's not. That's,
Yeah.
Galen disagreed, arguing that it probably absorbed secretions as opposed to making them.
And he was right.
No, but
Crap.
And both
How
of
can
them.
they both be wrong and opposite? One of them's right.
Well, they were both basing it on the fact that the thyroid seemed spongy.
Okay.
They agreed that it was spongy,
They both agreed sponginess was a factor.
but was that for secretion? Like, like if you squeeze a sponge, I guess, and so water comes out of it, or for absorption? They didn't know.
They didn't
But it's spongy, either way. Galen also thought that the goiter was a herniation of the larynx, so your voice box. He thought that the goiter was just kind of like it poking out there in your neck. And the term goiter actually probably originated from the word gutter, which means larynx or bronchus in Latin, or gutter, probably gutter. But anyway, but
right.
that's not correct. It has nothing to do with that. But that is where that word comes from. Pliny, of course, had his own ideas. Pliny the Elder.
He's got to get in the mix.
He had a theory, and this was actually widely believed at the time, that goiters were caused by drinking snow water.
What?
Specifically like alpine snow water.
Oh, I see what you did. See what you did there? You've been skiing? I can tell. How did you know? Amazing. Pliny, you're amazing. How did you know? Well, the goiter from the snow water you drank. Did you drink? Did you get thirsty? And yes, I drank snow water. You're amazing.
This probably had to do with certain parts of the world where, especially like in Bavaria, where the soil is not particularly rich in iodine. And so you see like a prominent, like there's a lot of goiters. And so they're connecting Well, there are
Yeah.
these snow-covered mountains, and people go
Correlation,
skiing
not
and,
causation.
skiing, and and that kind of thing. Like, there's this weird connection between all this, and the two things did exist, but they had nothing to do with each other.
Right.
People probably did drink snow water.
Sure, it's delicious and cold. Who wouldn't want some snow water?
This association was so strongly made that actually, if you look at some traditional, like, Bavarian clothing from especially like the Salzburg area from the 19th century, it includes a choker that especially women would wear. You know, the necklace, the choker. I don't know if you looked confused.
No, I understand that.
It includes a choker that was called the Kropfband or Struma band, which was specifically to either hide a goiter or to hide whatever was left after you'd had surgery.
So, like, okay, I'm having trouble understanding something. A goiter, you can remove a goiter, or like,
Yeah.
do you always have a goiter, or do you only have a goiter when you have a goiter?
Okay, a goiter is like the thyroid gland is too big. It's an overgrowth.
Okay, but you can't just take that out, right? Because you need the gland.
Well, you do need the gland, but now we can replace the hormone that you need. So if we
Yeah,
have
but
to,
back
if
in
we
these-
have to take your thyroid out, we can.
Back in these days, they couldn't have.
Well, they could have removed part of it and left part of the gland.
They were just guessing anyway, right? You're only going to live to
Well, that's-
35. Let's
but
just roll the dice.
A partial thyroidectomy, only removing part of the thyroid, is not. I mean, that happens even today. So that would not have been impossible.
Okay.
So removing a goiter would have been totally possible once we knew how to do surgery and such.
Okay. Got it.
So recommended treatments from the Greek and Roman era encompassed a lot of different substances, especially things like lizard and dog poop. I have no idea why that association was made. There's some things we're going to get into that made a lot of sense that didn't.
I think anytime we use poop in treatment, we were probably just kind of guessing.
Yeah.
There's very little like logical lines you could draw between, like, well, I don't know, maybe
Just poop.
it's just poopy, maybe it's
try it.
poopy.
I don't know. There was one Roman physician, Aurelius Celsus, who advised just cut it out
See,
or maybe burn it
I
out.
think that's a problem. Don't burn it. Oh man, Celsus.
I mean, I'm not saying that we're not going to get there, but at the time, we probably couldn't have done that well. Da Vinci drew the thyroid gland. If you look at his anatomical diagrams, he was aware of its existence. He drew it. And his theory as to what it did, because he had no idea, but I just think it's an interesting theory. He thought that it just basically filled the space between the neck muscles. Just kind of, well, you need something there to fill that empty space. And it keeps the trachea from bumping up against the sternum.
So he thought it was a shim, basically.
Yeah.
Like one of the body's many shims.
Exactly.
A spacer to keep things apart.
To make everything look nice. That's such an artistic
Right.
way of like, well, you need something there to hold all those other structures in place. So
Right.
we'll just, there it is. There's the thyroid. The first mention, and this becomes a very common treatment throughout history. There's a mention from China, 1600 BCE, of using burnt sponges, as in like sea sponges or seaweed, as a treatment for goiter. This was a good idea. They didn't know why. Nobody knew why it was a good idea.
They just
But it was one of those times where they tried something, it probably did help, and people kept trying it.
I wonder how they got to that. Just like intuited it, or just throwing spaghetti at the wall, I guess.
It's why, I mean, how do people figure these things out before they understand the medicine underneath? But they did. And these substances do contain iodine, which is why they helped. And we're going to talk about why iodine helps with goiter soon.
Oh no.
But first,
Ah,
let's head to the billing department.
leave me hanging. Let's go.
The medicines that escalate macabre for the mouth.
Folks, our first sponsor this week is Blue Apron. They are one of our favorite companies here. What is a Blue Apron? Well, they're going to deliver fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients and step-by-step recipes right to your door that can be cooked in under 45 minutes. You will not believe the stuff that you are able to make with Blue Apron. I can't tell you the number of grammable or instable. I don't know which one is
Grammable.
meals.
I think, yeah.
I don't put them there, but I think to myself, like, you my little beauty. Could go
Yeah.
on Insta. Gram.
Were I a foodie,
Were I a foodie, I would put you on the gram. What are we talking about? The delicious meals like roasted broccoli and sweet potato with the seared steaks and warm lemon salsa verde. I mean, delicious stuff. And for 8 weeks, ending on February 26th, Blue Apron is teaming with Whole30 to bring you delicious recipes featuring 2 Whole30 approved recipes each week. So Blue Apron is treating Sawbones listeners to $30 off your first order if you visit blueapron.com/sawbones. So check out this week's menu and get your $30 off with free shipping at blueapron.com/sawbones. Blue Apron is a better way to cook. You want somebody great at your business. I understand. It's your business. You don't want to hire a bunch of yahoos. I think it's an understandable impulse, but it's hard to do, and ZipRecruiter is there to make it easier. It posts your job to over 100 job boards with just one click, and then they actively look for the most qualified candidates and invite them to apply. It's no wonder that 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. ZipRecruiter is, put simply, the smartest way to hire. And right now, our listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right. You heard me right. I didn't stumble over my words. I said free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/sawbones. That's ZipRecruiter.com/sawbones. Now, Sydney, you promised me a lot of talk about iodine and then just left me hanging. And I'm hoping you can hold up your end of the bargain now.
I'm going to go ahead and deliver on that now, even though there's a lot more history to get through. I do want to make clear, because I think that it helps to understand the discoveries to follow. So iodine is essential in producing thyroid hormones. Without iodine, your body can't make them.
Okay.
And iodine is considered an essential element, and meaning that we don't make it. We need to go get it from food.
Okay.
And it's easy to get nowadays, and we'll talk about why it's not something you probably think about. Like, did I eat enough iodine today? We've made that pretty simple, but back before we understood its importance, it really depended on where you lived. Some areas have soil that is naturally very rich in iodine, and
Eat the dirt.
Well, no, I mean, you don't eat the dirt, but you eat like
Vegetables
food from the
grown in the
dirt,
dirt.
and water
Yes, yes.
that kind of stuff. So iodine would have been easy to just get from your environment. But if you lived in areas where there was iodine poor soil, you may not have gotten enough naturally through your diet. Things like seaweed naturally contain a lot of iodine. And so that's why you start to see these themes emerge of people eating things that have iodine in them that will then give your body what it needs, which means your thyroid can start making thyroid hormone, which means your brain can stop stimulating your thyroid gland, which means it won't get so big. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right.
What's iodine look like? For some reason, I always imagine it in like it looks like a bottle of ink. That's the image I always get in my head when I think about iodine, just like a big bottle of ink. But I don't think that it's like dark purple and black.
Well,
I kind of think of iodine that way, but
yeah. Well, when it was first, no, but when it was first discovered, there is, and we'll talk about when it was first discovered. They did associate it with like a purple poof of smoke or something.
okay. I don't. Maybe
That's where that comes
yeah,
from.
Who knows? I don't know. I just what I think of when I think of iodine.
No,
Okay.
it is dark, but like it's orangish.
You know what? I
brownish.
might have seen somebody do an experiment that showed the iodine in salt using purple something, and I just got some wires crossed in my head.
I think. Now I don't know. I'm not a chemist. I do think there are forms of iodine that have a purplish. I think you're right. I think
Maybe
it depends
that.
on what form of iodine you're using.
Can you just say that again? I've never heard you say it or recording. Just repeat that out loud. I wanted to make an isolated text message alertable.
I'm certain our chemist friends who listen can clarify that point. But I think the
Hey,
color
listen,
of
y'all.
iodine.
I love you. I love you so much. I love all of you. I'm a very busy man. Do not tweet at me about the color of iodine. Please, I beg of you. Please set me free. Don't do
the
this.
preps we use, like in surgical, like iodine for surgical procedures and things like that, are not purple. But I'm not saying. I mean, it's like a lot of things. It depends on, like, is it in a salt form or is it a is it liquid? Is it solid? Like it can change color depending on what form it's in. So,
Yeah, okay.
you know. Anyway, so in the 6th through 8th centuries, surgeries continue to be attempted. As I already said, like people have already kind of started to think like maybe we should do surgery for this, just cut the goiter out. And they're mainly either using hot wires to try to kind of cut through the tissue,
Very unpleasant.
or if you can't do that,
They didn't have knives? Like,
well, that was your backup. They would try to like stitch hot wires through it slowly, or just use a scalpel if you couldn't do that. That was the backup plan. It wasn't until the 10th century that Albicasis removed a whole gland while a patient was really high on opium.
nice.
So it was like anesthesia, you know, I mean, it was for a purpose.
Medicinal opium.
Medicinal opium. In the 12th century, though, goiter was largely treated with things like calcium and copper and sulfur and ammonium salts, or they had like a specific concoction of barren walnut leaves, roots, wine, and pepper. But underneath all these other random things people were trying, you still see recommendations for things like burnt and dried marine sponges. So again, returning to
The sponge.
iodine being present in substances, even though people didn't know. While a lot of different physicians were trying to study the thyroid gland, especially in terms of goiters, because they were so prominent and so many people complained about them, probably because a lot of people had them, there was a lot of disagreement as to, you know, what was going on, what was the disease, what was the cause. They were thought to be related to the trachea sometimes. Some people thought they were related to the heart, to the spleen. They argued
it
over
up
whether it
so you can
was
see it.
there just for shape, or was it there to make things, or was it there to absorb things. Some people followed the Hippocratic tradition. Some people believed Galen was right. They thought it was maybe just a buffer between the heart and the brain,
Okay.
provided some sort of conduit between the two.
Sure.
Whatever. Surgery was still popular as a treatment when you didn't know what else to do, as well as just like squishing the gland down, like wrap it with cloth soaked in
little
vinegar or
little
ammonia,
Girdle? Like a little
neck girdle,
goiter girdle?
a goiter girdle. Exactly. Seaweed, marine shell sponges, they still persist, and you would have thought by now they would have taken over, but no, people are still doing other weird things. And finally, we figure out iodine in the 1800s. That's when we really make a breakthrough. In 1811, there was a Frenchman, Bernard Courtois, who accidentally figured out iodine. He wasn't trying to. He was not a doctor. He was actually trying to find a way to help manufacture gunpowder.
Oh, fun. Okay.
So not at all looking to cure people,
Right.
really. He was working with Napoleon's army, and he had run out of the willow ashes that he needed to make sodium carbonate, which
Is it in gunpowder?
apparently
Part of
is in gunpowder.
saltpeter.
Yeah.
They talk about that in 1776, I think.
Ah, okay. So there you go. And so he began burning seaweed and was using those ashes instead. And he added a little too much sulfuric acid at some point, and in all of this, a purple puff of smoke, like I said, arose, and it hardened into some violet crystals. So some form of iodine is purple.
Something's purple.
There you go. He basically said, I don't know what that was, and went back to trying to make gunpowder.
Anyway.
But eventually, this substance that he isolated would be studied again, figured out that it's iodine, named, and voila, we know what iodine is.
So you just left the purple dust in
Yeah.
a pile there. That's somebody else's problem.
I guess he must have written about it, though. Like, clearly he wrote it up.
He apparently wrote it up because we put him in this episode of Solve.
He wrote about it and then said, whatever.
We
I'm-
very rarely include people in histories for leaving dirt around. Leaving weird purple dirt on their desk.
This seems interesting, but I'm very much into
I
gunpowder
want
right
history
now.
to remember I found out about this and did nothing with it. I need to put this in my journal.
So all of those substances that we've talked about before, turns out they contain iodine, and that's part of why it helped. Eugen Baumann, a scientist in the 19th century, started while we were studying different things. Like, okay, so we know there's different things in the thyroid, so maybe we can help people by figuring out what they're lacking or giving them those substances and that kind of thing. He boiled 1,000 sheep thyroids in sulfuric acid, collected the stuff that precipitated out of it. And he noticed that there were high levels of iodine present in it, so reaffirming that there's iodine in there.
Perfect.
And he began to treat
I
patients
know.
with goiter with this sheep thyroid extract.
Huh.
And
That sounds like, out of context, that would sheep
the problem is
thyroid
that even if
extract
I do
would sound
talk, you
very
just
much
can't
like one
really
of
hear
our
me,
fake
so-
treatments that is on Sawbones.
nope, it is real.
a real
I've
one.
yet to
That's,
fix
I mean, the
mic
original
problem.
treatments for thyroid were like animal thyroid extract. So there you go.
There it is.
So we
was
figured out. And this was the same period of time. We're really starting at this point in history to figure out a lot of stuff about thyroid glands. This is the same time where we connect it to something, because I know a lot of people have also written specifically asking about this, something that used to be called cretinism. That is a term that we no longer use in medicine. It's considered a derogatory term. And so you would not, I purely mention it for, historical academic purposes. The term cretinism is someone who is born with congenital hypothyroidism. This usually means that whoever was carrying the child had hypothyroidism, and was not treated, and therefore the fetus suffered some effects from that, and so was born with hypothyroidism. I mention it because we finally figured out that all this was connected, and that we could treat people born with this condition with thyroid hormone.
What is the name of it now? What do we call it now?
Congenital hypothyroidism.
Okay.
But the name, a lot of people talk about where did that name come from, cretinism, and there are several theories. The one that I learned in med school actually is not certain. It is one theory, but I was taught that it was absolute. I remember being told this and thinking this is correct, and from what I've read, this is just one possibility. It comes from the word for Christian, and it was thought that these people could not sin because there were usually some cognitive delays associated with it.
Okay.
And so it was thought these people were incapable of sinning because they didn't understand the difference between right and wrong, so they were connected with Christ-like behavior. That was what I was taught that word came from. It may actually have been connected to Christian in terms of these are human beings, and an attempt to try to humanize people who have some sort of disability through the naming of it. If that makes sense.
But still, we're not sure about this enough, so we just decided as a community to say, like, we're not going to say that anymore.
It's a derogatory term. You should not use it. It is not something that we use in medicine. We are taught it for historical purposes in med school, but we say congenital hypothyroidism.
Okay.
That is the term. In the following decades, Graves and von Bastow were two doctors who began to define the opposite, hyperthyroidism, meaning you make too much thyroid hormone. And that's why Graves' disease is one version of that to this day. There are many reasons why your thyroid might become dysfunctional. I'm not going to go into all of them, but Graves' disease is one. And all the symptoms that come with that. So whereas people with not enough thyroid hormone can have fatigue and weight gain and dry skin, and their hair can fall out, and constipation and the swelling, people with too much thyroid hormone will have kind of the opposite symptoms.
So like everything's great?
No.
Like they have full lush hair and they can lose weight really easily, and
Well, they do lose weight really easily, but it's a bad thing. They can they can lose too much weight, and you have diarrhea, and your heart races, and you're anxious, and you're sweaty. It's not a good thing. Your heart can beat so fast that you have arrhythmias, abnormal heart rhythms.
Okay.
So it's not a good thing.
I think on my face.
Either way is not a good thing. And in addition, in this period of time, somebody actually proposed for the first time, maybe we should start adding iodine into something that everyone eats. Like, how about salt? And everybody kind of like was, nah.
Oh, sounds hard.
Yeah.
Sounds hard.
This wouldn't happen for like another 100 years. It was like I said, it was initially mentioned, the guy who mentioned it was David Marine. He was a pathologist from Johns Hopkins, and he had this interest in goiters, and he found this idea from a French chemist who existed long before him, whose last name is Boussingault. I'm trying my best here with the French pronunciation.
It's fine. It sounded good in my ears.
He had noticed all the way back in the 1830s that if you found places with crude sea salt, which has iodine in it, people don't have goiters, but places where they didn't have that, people did have goiters. And so he had recommended this idea of like put iodine in the salt. Nobody paid attention to it until David Marine did many, many years later. And he said, like, you know what, everybody eats salt, so why don't we just put iodine in the salt, and kind of stole this idea from 100 years ago, which was a good one then and it's a good one now. And it seemed like a good solution. So after he did some experiments where he took a bunch of actually schoolgirls who lived in an area that was prone to goiter development, and he gave them iodized salt, and none of them ever got goiters. Everybody went, yay, you did it. And so
Hooray.
It started out in Michigan, and they started adding iodine to salt, and that has continued, and it's a huge public health triumph. Most of our salt is iodized. Did you know that?
Yeah, we did. Well, didn't we did a salt episode where we talked about it.
Yes.
So I did know that because I remember all of it photographically.
So by adding it to our salt, we are all insured. We love salt. We are all insured that we get plenty of iodine in our diets, and then we don't develop goiter. By the mid-1900s, as I had already alluded to, we knew that using thyroid extract from animals to treat hypothyroidism and goiter and that kind of thing was successful. So we began to synthetically produce thyroid hormone, commonly called levothyroxine nowadays, or Synthroid is the brand name a lot of people connect it with. That's a brand name, but levothyroxine. So commonly we use that to just replace the thyroid hormone that you don't have enough of. It's that simple. I like elegant solutions. It's that easy. You don't have enough, we give you some. And we use, like I said, we use iodine to prevent goiter, as well as if you have too much thyroid hormone, hyperthyroidism or Graves' disease, something like that, we can actually use radioactive iodine to destroy thyroid tissue, because your thyroid gland is going to soak it up. So we use that to destroy excess thyroid tissue as well. So it is both I don't know. That seems like it is a treatment, although it's doing something destructive. It's a treatment as well. It took us a while to figure out the right dose, and we initially gave a lot of patients too much iodine in this process. And so there are symptoms of iodine poisoning that we figured out from that. But since then, we're much better at it. And so now we know the right dose of iodine to give people, and we know how much thyroid medication to give people. And we figured it all out.
Hooray, we did it.
Pretty much.
Do you ever wish that do you ever feel like you missed like a lot of these good medical puzzles? Do you wish that you lived in a time period where like there was still a lot of this unsolved ever?
I think there still is.
Oh, okay. Well, good. That's right. Cancer and stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we
But
talked
these are
a
like
lot
the
about
easy ones, right? Like, it's like just salt, maybe. I don't know.
some salt.
Try a salt. Rub a seashell on it. That worked.
I would say two things. I would say
Where's my
one,
medal?
there's still a lot more puzzles, because we didn't talk a lot about, for instance, thyroid cancer. And when you talk about cancer in general, there's something we still have a lot of work to do to figure out how best to treat. But the other thing I'd say is there's a different puzzle here. We may have figured out that in this country we add iodine to salt, and so we see much less goiter. I mean, it's possible, but we don't see much. I've never seen a case of goiter in my career. But there are many places in the world where they don't have access to any kind of iodized food, and so they're not getting enough iodine, and we're still seeing goiter as an endemic problem. So there's still that puzzle, which is, well, we may have solved it in some places, but how do we make sure that everyone has access to that medical knowledge and that treatment and that same care that we're getting? So there's a whole other puzzle that maybe interests me just as much, maybe a little more sometimes. So
folks, that's going to do it for us for this week. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks to Max Fun Network for having us as a part of their extended podcasting family. You can find all their great shows at MaximumFun.org. Also, thanks to the taxpayers for letting us use their song Medicines as the intro and outro of our program. And most of all, thanks to you for listening. We sure appreciate it, and we hope you'll join us again next time. But until then, my name is Justin McElroy.
I'm Sydney McElroy.
And as always, don't drill a hole in your head.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture. Artist owned.
Listener supported.
Sawbones is a show about medical history, and nothing the hosts say should be taken as medical advice or opinion. It's for fun. Can't you just have fun for an hour and not try to diagnose your mystery boil? We think you've earned it. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy a moment of distraction from that weird growth. You're worth it.
All right. Song is about some books. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. We came across a pharmacy with its windows blasted out. Pushed on through the broken glass and had ourselves a look around. The medicines that escalate macabre for the mouth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sawbones, a marital tour of misguided medicine. I'm your co-host, Justin McElroy.
And I'm Sydney McElroy.
Well, Sydney, it's cold and flu season.
Yes, it is, Justin. Did you get your flu shot?
You know I did.
Good. Because no matter what, we're not going to talk about the flu because we've talked about the flu before. I just want to briefly say, no matter what you've heard on the news about how effective or ineffective the flu shot may be, you still should get your flu shot. We still recommend it. Even if there's a chance it's not going to protect you, there's a chance it will. And also, we have reason to believe that because of some cross-reactivity, even if it's the wrong strain, you may have a less severe version of the flu if you get it. So, as someone who has had their flu shot and then still got the flu, I will still strongly recommend to you, get your flu shot.
Get your flu shot. But this time, it's not just cold. It's not just flu. There's a lot of bugs this time of year.
That's right. This is the time of year where everybody gets, the sniffles.
And they come into your office and they say, Sydney, make me feel better.
It's true. It's very frustrating to have upper respiratory infections, meaning like the stuff that makes you have a runny nose and a sore throat and cough and congestion and that kind of stuff. Even like sinus infections that kind of in this same arena, because most of them are caused by viruses. Mm-hmm. And there's not much we can do to expedite your healing from a viral infection in this case. There are other viruses maybe, but for this case, it's usually just time and fluids and rest, and you'll get better.
No magic pill for that.
But one thing that generally will not help unless you do happen to have a bacterial infection are antibiotics.
Thanks.
And you get a lot of people asking you for those, I know.
It's a common problem because, sometimes you have an infection and your doctor tells you need antibiotics, and then other times your doctor might tell you don't. And so it can be hard to understand why sometimes it seems like we're withholding something, right? Like, well, this treatment has helped me before, why won't you give it to me again? But the truth is, if you have a viral infection, which you most likely do, antibiotics aren't going to help you at all. They do have side effects. And every time we misuse antibiotics, and we're going to talk about this a little more, we run the risk of building up more resistance to these antibiotics.
All right. Well,
so I think it's a good time of year to talk about antibiotics.
Let's do it.
So thank you to Samantha and Ian and Austin and Jesse and Sydney and Matthew and Cecilia and Allison and Sage and Megan. And I think a lot more people have suggested this over time. It got overwhelming. I don't know why we haven't covered this yet. This is a big topic in medicine, right?
Right.
Antibiotics. The story doesn't really formally begin until the 1900s. That's like the origins of what we think of today as antibiotics. But we have been trying to treat infections, even when we didn't know that's what they were, for a really long time. which is the truth for everything, right? We don't know what this is, but we're going to put some stuff on it and see what
Some
happens.
honey, some frog legs.
Well, honey, you use honey, but honey's not a bad idea.
Nice. Crushed
this
it.
case.
Got it in one. Take that, old-timey doctors.
And that was one of the mainstays of early what we now understand is an infection, meaning some sort of bacteria is growing on something somewhere that it shouldn't. Honey was one of the most common treatments, and that probably was in some cases somewhat effective. It doesn't treat all infections, but it probably did help sometimes, especially with skin issues. The ancient Egyptians would actually rub bread mold on wounds that looked like they were not healing properly. Now we would recognize as infection.
That's weird.
Yes.
That's really, really weird.
Because as we will get into, that may have been...
You know, would it have worked?
Maybe.
Might have
I don't
helped.
know what bread mold it was, but
Maybe some bread mold.
maybe it... Let me say this. I don't know if it worked or not, but using mold to treat infections was practiced throughout history in Egypt, in Greece, in Rome, in China, and in Serbia.
Wow.
So, now, we have said this on the show before, just because a lot of people did it doesn't mean it worked.
It is
But
counterintuitive enough, though, that it makes you wonder, like,
did they see some effect?
or do they understand on some deeper level? Cindy, do you believe that there are some medicines that we know instinctively work?
Medicines
Like
that we know instinctively work.
That we instinctively know what could help us? Do you think that instinct could drive, like,
It's an interesting question. We're so far removed from that now in modern society. It'd be hard for me to make a guess. I mean, there are certainly things we're programmed to know are bad for us.
right?
You know, there are things that we naturally avoid, instinctually avoid, because they're toxic. So
I don't know.
it's an interesting question. But I mean, our whole podcast would lead you to believe otherwise.
Yeah,
though.
evidence to the contrary. This does seem like kind of an outlier.
The ancient Egyptians also accidentally ingested an antibiotic called tetracycline, which is still in use today, regularly.
How?
Well, they would brew this kind of beer. It was sort of a chunky bread beer thing.
Yeah.
It was a mixture that they drank a lot. About 3% alcohol, and it was like this fermented bread porridgey beer
Sounds
stuff.
good.
Because of naturally occurring bacteria in their soil and in the things they grew and all this, the beer would contain high levels of tetracycline as like kind of an extra product that was created in the process. And this was long before we actually isolated tetracycline and figured out that it was an antibiotic and used it to treat infections. So it was, the thing is though, the beer was elevated to, it was not just a drink. It was not just something you would imbibe, and it was not just used for fun times. It was not, you know, a lot of people drank beer and you would think, oh, because they were all getting intoxicated and it was fun. No, beer was thought to be a healthy drink. This beverage was thought to be, I don't want to say magical, but somewhat magical and spiritual and important to the body, important to the culture and their
you
existence.
still believe that to this day, yeah?
No, I'm not saying that.
No.
I am a fan of beer.
And its magical properties.
I'm not going to say beer has magical properties.
Sure.
I'm looking forward to a time when I can drink it again at the end of this pregnancy. I know it is not magical.
I'm kind of jealous of you because, like, I've never denied myself something I love that much for 10 months. So, like, I'm jealous of you that you're getting this great experience because it's gonna be so good afterwards. Now I won't understand that. You know,
This is the point where I urge everyone to drink responsibly.
do you feel bad for me because I won't experience that great taste of 10 months without beer?
Yeah, no,
beer?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't at all. I don't feel bad for you in any regards to this pregnancy.
Fair. I'll take it.
Anyway, so beer was used medicinally for all kinds of different things: stomach ailments, coughs, constipation. There's a prescription that you can find for a beer enema that people would take. And we have figured all this
Please
out.
just do Natty Light. If it's going up your butt anyway, that or the Beast.
Don't waste something good.
Yeah, don't make it a good beer.
But we know this, by the way, because we've studied bones and found tetracycline deposits in the bones of ancient Egyptians.
Guess
So-
the beer wasn't that great because they died.
Well, I mean, we'll cover mortality at some other point. Traditional Chinese medicine relied on a number of different herbal medications for what would have been, like, again, things that we now know to be infectious, because people would look for certain signs, like, well, that's hot and red and swollen and there's pus coming out, so we treat it with these things. Now we would say, oh, that's infected. And some of these things have been found to have natural antimicrobial activity, meaning that you put this herb in a petri dish with some bacteria and the bacteria won't grow there. That doesn't always mean that they'll work in the human body the same way, but we have observed that. In addition, it should be noted that traditional Chinese medicine brought us artemisinin, which is a plant-based medicine that has been used for thousands of years for all kinds of different ailments, but is very effective against malaria. Now, when it comes to the Middle Ages, typically on this show, you start making fun of people.
Not the people. Although, I mean, holistically speaking, yes. But the Middle Ages is normally where, if we are building up a head of steam treating something, we all take a collective dump. I mean, I can't think of a nicer way to say it than that, but we usually take a dump during the Middle Ages.
Now, I have to tell you that there is something that came out of the Middle Ages when it comes to fighting infection that actually is useful.
Excalibur. That's the only good thing about the Middle Ages.
No, it was not a sword. It was not
the magical sword Excalibur.
It was not. No, it was not a sword. So I want to tell you about, and this was something I think we independently had a lot of listeners when this came out in the news tell us we should talk about, and we haven't covered it before. So here you go. Bald's eye salve. This is a recipe for a medicine.
Okay.
Eye salve. It's a salve for your eyes. You know, something.
Is this a brand?
Well, it's from a guy, Bald.
Oh, okay.
Who made it?
It's weird to think of brands
it's from
in the Middle Ages.
It's from his book, Bald's Leech Book, which is a medical text from the 10th century in England. So, which was a collection of a lot of recipes from the day, you know, for different ailments. So this was used for styes, which were known at the time as wins. So a stye, you know what a stye is on your eye? It's a little infected area on your eyelid. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. So this is a salve you would put on your eye. It contained wine, garlic, some sort of allium species like a leek or an onion, and oxgall. And so you mix all this together. You have to put them in a brass vessel for 9 days. Well, 9 nights, I should say. And then at the end of that, you use it. So a team of researchers in 2015 took this recipe and reproduced it exactly, including the 9 nights in a brass vessel and all that. And then used it in petri dishes as well as in some tissue from chronic mouse wounds that had staph bacteria, specifically MRSA staph bacteria, which is the kind that's very resistant, methicillin resistant Staph aureus. So that's what a lot of people get scared when they hear that. You think it's called the superbug, right? So very resistant bacteria. So they tried it against all this stuff and it seemed to work. Now, this was not in a human body or even in a live mouse body, I should say. It was in tissue from. So what would this do in the human body? I don't know. I can't tell you. But at least in petri dishes and in tissue cultures, it worked to kill the bacteria. They even kind of put it up head-to-head against vancomycin, an antibiotic that we commonly use for MRSA infections. And they said it worked just as well, if not better.
What? Why?
It's interesting. The theory is that it has to do with the allium, the leek or the onion. There are compounds in there that we know are antimicrobial. And so, but this doesn't work on its own. You have to follow the directions. You have to mix these ingredients and you have to leave them for 9 nights. It doesn't, they tried variations of it and it didn't work unless you followed that recipe exactly.
That's so strange.
It's very strange. There was also some theories that because there was copper in the pot, and copper is known to be antimicrobial. We've referenced this before. Copper inhibits the growth of bacteria. That maybe it was something synergistic between the allium and the copper. And anyway, the point is, it worked. And then it began to call into question all of these old recipes from, I mean, the
This
Middle
is
Ages or any
undermining-
time in history.
This is undermining the very premise of our show. This is infuriating.
Now, I will say this.
How
to-
am I supposed to sit in judgment from my perch, my modern perch, and judge my ancestors?
to be fair, they were not the first researchers to have tried this. In 2005, a team of researchers did it, and they could not reproduce they could not make this happen. I shouldn't say reproduce because they did it first, but they could not get these same results. So
Maybe they didn't live
I'm-
for 9 whole nights or something.
well, that, and they also called that into question actually in the 2015 study. I don't think they did it exactly right. So it's hard to say. I think it is definitely worth investigating and repeating because, as we're going to get into towards the end of the show, antibiotics, if you don't use them right, don't work forever. So it's always good to look for alternative methods that work to treat infections.
It's so sad that you have to add that coda.
That work.
That work.
I don't want to just say alternatives because there are lots of alternatives.
Right.
You can put anything on a wound. You just shouldn't. So, with all of these principles that we've kind of talked about, all these things that have been gleaned throughout history, people using bread molds and honeys and these salves that seem to actually work. There were a lot of efforts, all these principles between that and then getting to like modern day antibiotics like penicillin. You'd think there was a direct line, but of course we take a detour into using things like heavy metals for a good bit of history at this point. Mercury and arsenic are like how we mainly treat infections, especially things like syphilis, which we've talked about before. Things that were very caustic and painful and not necessarily the most effective. And we really don't get back into the story of the stuff that actually worked well and didn't harm people so much until we discovered microbes. So we've talked about this before. We figured out that there were what were first called animalcules.
That's a cooler name.
It is kind of a cool name. Germs, bugs, bacteria, microbes, things that cause infection. We figured out the germ theory of disease, that's why people get sick. That's why infections happen. And then we start trying to figure out, okay, now we know why an infection or now we know why this is happening. We have a name for it. We have a target for it. And the person who really spearheaded that was Paul Ehrlich. He was one of the first to use like a systematic approach to figuring out. His idea was that there's a silver bullet. You need to target the bacteria, target the germ, and then we can treat the infection, kill the bug, treat the infection, save the person.
Hey, what's a germ?
What?
Like, what's a germ?
Like something that causes disease?
Like, it could have... Is a bacteria a germ? Mm-hmm. Is a virus a germ?
Yeah.
So germ is a blanket term.
Yeah. Germ, I mean, we don't really use... Like, medically speaking, I don't often say germ in an actual jargon
Charlie asked
context.
me this morning why she was sick, and I told her she came to the right place. And I told her it was a cold germ. And then she said, what's a germ? And I was like, watch your YouTube, sweetie.
No, I mean, when we talk about the germ theory of disease, the idea is that there is an infectious agent that we can look at that is an actual thing that we can isolate that is causing disease, as opposed to like the miasma theory or an imbalance of humors or something else like that.
Got it. Okay, sorry to break flow.
So Ehrlich wanted to find an effective and not so toxic treatment for syphilis. That was his big goal. He tried out lots of different substances on rabbits with syphilis, and the sixth compound of the 600th series worked. It was compound 606, later known as salvarsan or neosalvarsan, which was a less toxic form. And it was the big syphilis treatment for a while until we get to the 1940s. Ooh. And I know this sounds like an offshoot because we're still not getting into the real antibiotics that we use, but the principles he used to develop this is what would lead to everything that is about to happen in antibiotic history. So he deserves that credit.
What's about to happen?
Well, I'm going to tell you, but first let's head to the billing department.
Let's go.
The medicines that escalate macabre for the mouth.
Folks, our first and only sponsor this week is Harry's. Harry's is a company that sells you razors through the mail. They don't come to your door and open a trench coat and say, hey, you looking a little gruff.
I would be a little nervous about that.
Me too. Harry's wants to keep you looking, feeling great, and can save you money. Good Shave, what's it about? It's about good blades. Harry's owns their factory, so they make sure all the blades are chef's kiss. And all the products are backed by a 100% guarantee, so you know it's legit. Harry's is so confident you're going to love their blades, they'll give you their trial shave set for free. That's right, you hear me, for free when you sign up at harrys.com/sawbones. You just pay for shipping and claim your free trial offer from Harry's today. That's a $13 value for free when you sign up. You just cover shipping. That set, by the way, includes a weighted ergonomic razor handle, 5 precision engineered blades with a lubricating strip and trimmer blade, a rich lathering shave gel, and a travel blade cover, and you can get one for free. Just go to harrys.com/sawbones right now. That's harrys.com/sawbones. Well, Sid, we were gonna get into what doors were opened in terms of antibiotic research at this point.
So with this concept that we now have something to target, researchers got busy trying to find a way to, actually kill these bacterial invaders. We usually think of penicillin as the first antibiotic.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you about penicillin, but it's fair to mention that sulfa drugs, sulfamethoxazole, very commonly used now in combination with trimethoprim, which is something called Bactrim, which a lot of people have heard of, were actually the first to come along. Not that one, but sulfa drugs in general. There was something the brand name was Prontosil. The generic name, if
you can do it,
if anyone is interested, sulfonamidocrisodine.
Sulfonamidocrisodine, of course.
Right.
Easy.
It was synthesized by Bayer chemists and marketed in the 30s. So it actually predates penicillin. But the problem was the active part of the drug, sulfanilamide, was a dye that had been in use for a while. It was interesting. A lot of people observed that dyes would cling to certain things in petri dishes, and so it was a way to it targets that because it only attaches to that. And actually, we accidentally killed this cell with this dye. Hey, we killed this cell with this dye. So a lot of people started to notice these
Good news,
things.
guys. We don't have to finish the experiment.
We did it.
We did it. That was so easy.
We can't see it anymore, but we did it.
Yeah.
So, but the problem was, since sulfanilamide was already widely in use for other things, they couldn't patent it. So a bunch of different companies started making these kind of things to cure infections, sort of maybe, with questionable means really quickly. This is also
always a good situation.
Yeah. This is also why when we talk about resistance to certain medications and bacteria not being killed anymore by that drug, sulfa resistance was one of the first to spring up. It's because we were just kind of willy-nilly throwing these sulfa compounds at infections. The first antibiotic that was really formally made and we used and kind of changed the course of human history, I think you have to give to penicillin. And most people kind of know the story, right?
Mold was involved.
Yes.
Louis Pasteur.
Nope. Okay, well, let me tell you. You're so close. You got the mold.
The mold I knew.
So, Scottish scientist Alexander Fleming. You know that, Fleming, penicillin.
Baby, I love you. We've been over this, though. You know I don't know any of this stuff. It's not a gag. It's not a bit. What were you so angry about? There was something else you were angry at me about yesterday.
Because you didn't know why you couldn't eat before surgery.
Yeah, you were mad. You were mad at me.
Anyway, Fleming
And
worked...
then I was like, okay, well, it's your field. What was Mario's original name? And you were like, Jumpman? And I was like, okay, well, I guess we're done talking.
Anyway, Fleming worked at St. Mary's Hospital, and he went on vacation for 2 weeks in the fall of 1928, and he left his lab in Paddington.
Home of Paddington Bear.
Hey, that you know that. He left it a complete mess.
Patronize me, Smurl.
And this was not uncommon for him. He was not known to keep his bench clean. His lab bench, his table, the big experiment table. It's called the lab bench.
Yeah.
Just in case you wondered. Anyway, he was not a fastidious a scientist. So this was not unusual. And so he came back from his vacation, well rested in September, to find that a petri dish that he had left out was Staphylococcus aureus, Staph aureus, a bacteria that causes infections, growing on it had become contaminated with a mold known as Penicillium notatum. And he also noticed that in the areas on the dish where the penicillium was growing, the staph bacteria were not. They had actually been lysed and kind of destroyed by the penicillium. Whereas the areas on the petri dish where there was no penicillium, the staph was growing just fine.
There's a t-shirt in this story somewhere. It's just so wordy. It's like, yeah, my room's messy, but I'm trying to discover a new antibiotic. Maybe you didn't know. That's how. And then, like, at this point, you're at the belly button. You're out of space.
This is getting to be a little ridiculous.
It's like a little wordy. It's not like your bumper sticker material, but there's something in there.
Aren't we lucky no one told Fleming to clean his room?
And then that would be a great conversation starter. That would prompt people to say, who is that?
You know who else was messy? Fleming.
Okay,
there.
Again, that you haven't really gotten the nut into there, I think.
So this was not the first time that a petri dish had become infected with a mold, or that this had happened. He was just kind of the first one to stop and look at it and go, maybe I should investigate this a little further. And we had suspected, as I mentioned, throughout history, that mold had something to do with treating infections for a long time, because we've been sticking moldy bread on infections for thousands of years. So this was not a wild idea. The problem was trying to figure out exactly what it is in the mold that's stopping the bacteria from growing. I mean, you can't just grow mold on wounds willy-nilly. That doesn't seem like a smart idea. So that is what took a long time, was to take that mold and isolate what is the compound in here that will help us treat infections, and how can we do that. Just because something works in a petri dish doesn't always mean it will work in the human body, and even if it will, making that happen that's a big process. Lots of research goes into that. So it took a long time. It actually wasn't until 1940, so now we've jumped from 1928 to 1940. Wow. That he was doing this research and he was publishing, and another scientist, Dr. Howard Florey, who was a professor of pathology at Oxford University, got really excited about it and said, I think we can help with this. So him and another biochemist that he worked with, Dr. Ernst Chain, started working on this process. How can we make more of this mold and isolate what in it will treat, will kill this staph. So the problem and they were very successful in doing this, except that what they ran into is that it took them 2,000 liters of mold culture. So they had to create 2,000 liters of this mold in the lab to isolate enough penicillin, which was what they called the compound that they found that inhibited the growth of bacteria, to treat a single case of sepsis in a person. That's a lot of mold.
A lot of mold.
To treat one person. And they were having trouble overcoming that, because what happened is they had this new thing. They were using it in their lab, and it seemed to work really well. And then there was a local case of a guy, Albert Alexander, who was a police constable who had been working in his rose garden when he nicked his face. Probably, I'm assuming, a thorn or something. And he developed a really horrible cellulitis from that, infection of his skin, an abscess, meaning a big pocket of pus and infection under there. He became septic. He was dying. And they were giving him sulfa drugs, which were around at the time, and they weren't working. So these two scientists, Chain and Florey, were like, hey, can we try our new penicillin? He's going to die anyway. Can we try this? We think this will help. And they did. And it was helping.
Wow.
And then they ran out.
And then what happened?
And then, unfortunately, he passed away.
Great story, Sid.
Sorry.
Top 10 medical
So
anecdotes.
they knew it worked, but they didn't know how. But they had to make more, because they didn't even have enough in their lab to treat one person.
I think I speak for all the audience when I say I didn't think that anecdote was going to shake out that way. I felt a swelling of hope that you quickly doused with your lack of mold.
I'm sorry. They ran out of mold.
Okay.
Dr. Norman Heatley joined their crew, and he started growing.
Can I just take a brief moment to say a lot of good names in this episode already. Norman Heatley, Howard Florey, Ernst Chain. Don't mind if I do. Just like a lot. Albert Alexander is even good. That's like a Agatha Christie name. That's good stuff. Some good names in this app.
And all of these people work together. We always give Fleming all the credit, and he definitely deserves credit for penicillin. But there are a lot of people helped get us from mold in a petri dish to
That's always the way of science, right? It's very rare to find.
Yes. It's just I feel like in history books you always just associate that one name.
Yeah, I mean Lorenzo made that oil by himself. But other than that, that's about it.
I don't think that's how that story goes. So Heatley joined the crew, and he was growing vats of this mold in like bedpans. Like his lab was just covered with all the mold he could grow.
To get interns.
To try to overcome this, but obviously there had to be something else to fix this, because this was not going to be reproducible on a mass scale at this point. So a lab assistant, Mary Hunt, showed up one day with a cantaloupe that she had found covered in a mold, Penicillium chrysogeum. And this strain yielded 200 times the amount of penicillin that the notatum did.
Wow.
So
that's good. That's way more.
So this definitely helped. Now they also at some point started radiating it, which like amped it up to 1,000 times more penicillin. So that was probably the even bigger breakthrough. And so they finally figured out how to make enough penicillin to actually be effective, to actually have some clinical impact on people. They took it to American pharmaceutical companies, and they began pumping out what was then known as penicillin just in time for World War II. And you really saw a difference in rates of death from infection if you look at like World War I compared to World War II, because in World War II we were able to use penicillin. In March 1942, Ann Miller was treated with penicillin. She was the first civilian. And she was in a hospital in Connecticut, in New Haven. She had had a miscarriage and had developed an infection afterwards and sepsis, and was quite sick. And typically at the time you would expect someone in that position to not survive. And penicillin saved her life.
All right.
Yeah, so there's the
It's a
happy...
shame about her name, but other than that, pretty good.
There's the happy story you wanted.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
In 1945... all these people we talked about essentially got a Nobel Prize for the discovery, except for Heatley. Do you know they left him out?
Oh, why?
It was just one of those, who knows, they just overlooked it, or his name wasn't on the right paper, or whatever. This was actually, I don't know if righted is the right word, but many decades later they recognized him with like the first honorary doctorate they'd ever done. To kind of make up for leaving him out of the crew, out of this Ocean's 11 crew that discovered penicillin. But they won the Nobel Prize, and in his speech, in his acceptance speech, Fleming stood up and said, "Listen, this is great, and I'm very happy about this. He said something to the effect of like, I didn't know that day in the lab that I had discovered something that was going to change the course of mankind or save lives or something very grandiose." But then he turned around and he said, "You should also know this won't work forever. Bacteria get smarter. They do develop resistance over time. Just because it's killing bacteria now, if we use this too much, if we don't find other ways to treat infections, this won't work for us forever." He warned of this in 1945.
Wow.
Just a few short years after we had discovered and started using penicillin.
What buzzkill. Like, couldn't we kick it for a decade? I get it. I get how you guys work.
A good scientist.
No, like, I get it, but like, can we just be can we just be stoked about penicillin for a second?
You can for a second. And then resistance started building. And now let me
All I'm saying
say,
is it's still a problem in 2018. He could have kicked it for a decade and then dropped that on everybody. Let us just like chill out.
they were seeing resistance by like the late 40s, early 50s. I mean, that's the problem. Like, this stuff happens. Bacteria learn quickly, and they grow and evolve faster than we do. So,
This is a fun episode. I'm really
Sorry.
This is great. No, it's true. It's good. It's good.
so from there, all other kinds of antibiotics started hitting the market. If you look at the intervening years, you know, different classes.
Are they using basically the same like idea? Like I mean I know biochemistry isn't really your field, but like is it?
Well, I mean, in terms of how they kill bacteria,
Yeah,
they're different. There are all kinds of different ways that they attack the bacteria, because some are bactericidal, meaning they actually lyse and kill the bacterial cells. Some are bacteriostatic, meaning they'll just stop them from growing, and they target different things within the bacteria, which is why they're used against different infections. That's why a lot of times I'll have someone ask me, like, well, can't you give me something stronger? I want a stronger antibiotic. And you can't think about antibiotics as stronger and weaker. You have to think about the spectrum of bugs that they kill. There are reasons we use certain antibiotics for a pneumonia versus a skin infection versus a urinary tract infection. It's because we know what kind of bacteria are likely to grow there, and certain antibiotics work better there. Or maybe that antibiotic gets into lung tissue better, or maybe that antibiotic will penetrate the urine better, that kind of thing. So it's good not to think there's like a ladder of antibiotics with the strongest one way up at the top and the weakest one at the bottom, and your doctor's picking a weak one because they don't want you to get better or something. It's better to think of it as like a web of antibiotics that treat different things.
Okay.
And that's what we came up with through the intervening years between then and now, are all these new antibiotics. But like I said, the problem is bacteria are smart. They're wily. And they keep coming up with new ways to evade these antibiotics. And nowadays, we see a lot of different infections. MRSA, MRSA being one of the big ones that I see that one in the media the most often. That can cause pretty devastating infections and is very difficult to treat, because only a few antibiotics work against it. There are other ones, Klebsiella, Enterobacter, Acinetobacter, Pseudomonas, VRE. There are all these different kinds of infections that now are resistant to lots of antibiotics. So in some cases, there are still a couple left that will treat them. I have seen cases where there is literally no antibiotic that will treat this infection. Every one we have, we still do it the same way. We put little antibiotic like circle discs in a petri dish of the bacteria and then see where the growth won't happen. And it's the same kind of thing that Fleming accidentally did in his lab. And sometimes the bacteria grows no matter what disc you put on there. So the reason I say this is not to be a bummer. And you're looking at me like I'm a bummer.
No, I'm not.
I'm not trying to be a bummer. What I'm saying is overprescribing antibiotics, meaning giving someone an antibiotic that would kill a bacteria when they really have a viral infection, does no one any favors. It's not going to make you any better any faster. It might give you diarrhea. You might get a yeast infection. And also, maybe next time that antibiotic won't work quite as well for you. Because what you're doing is you're selecting for those really strong resistant bugs that, you know, are living there. So overprescribing is a big issue with this. Self-administration. In the U.S., it's hard to like go buy over-the-counter antibiotics, but there are a lot of countries where that's not true. You can go buy antibiotics at the pharmacy, just like you would buy Tylenol or something. And that's very dangerous, because then you're relying on, you know, everybody to just kind of know when they have an infection that needs an antibiotic, and you can't know that. I mean, sometimes even, you know, as a physician with all of the years of education and training I have, sometimes I'm having to make educated guesses and based on my experience and my knowledge and do the best I can with that information. There's no way you can do that on your own. Just every time you have a runny nose, think, well, I know I need a Z-Pak, and go buy one over the counter. So that's really dangerous. And then obviously there are antibiotics in our environment. They're in our water, in our soil, in our food, in our toothpaste, in our milk.
The milk I bought today, I had to go to the drugstore, so I didn't have a lot of options. The milk I bought today said, I was looking because I was like, what about antibiotics? And I looked on there and it said, tested for antibiotics. I was like, well, okay. Okay, that's, I mean, it's a start.
We looked for them.
Well, yeah, we looked for them. And then they just like stare at me blankly. Like, yeah, no, we tested it for antibiotics.
They're looking at you going, do you want to know? Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
But the important thing to know is that There's still plenty of antibiotics that work. Obviously, they're still powerful against most infections, and we're still working to try to come up with new ones and new ways of treating infections. But we should all be better stewards of antibiotics. People in the medical profession, and then all of us as patients, because sometimes I'm the patient, to know that, you know what, sometimes you feel so lousy and you think, can't you just give me something to make me feel better? And unfortunately, sometimes the answer is, no, I can't. There isn't anything that's going to make you feel better faster. You will get better, but you're just going to have to wait it out. Go home and rest. Don't go to work. Don't go to school. Get in bed. Get some tissues. Watch some Netflix and eat some chicken soup.
Folks, that's going to do it for us this week. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks to the taxpayers for letting us use their song Medicines as the intro and outro of our program. Thanks to Max Fun Network for having us as part of their extended podcasting family. And thank you to you at home for listening to our program. Hey, if you haven't checked out Court Appointed yet, that's the show that Sid's dad does with Sydney's uncle Michael,
who is a real actual lawyer.
It's a show about law stuff, and I'm going to be on a new episode that's probably out Monday, about net neutrality. So if you're interested in that topic or want to hear me bloviate on a different format, then go check that totally out. So until next week, my name is Justin McElroy.
I'm Sydney McElroy.
And as always, don't drill a hole in your head.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture. Artist owned.
Listener supported.
Go to
401k. And I ain't giving this fire for a cold, cold heart. So don't say I'm getting cold, 'cause I'll say it when I do. 'Cause everybody I know is growing old too. And I don't wanna go, no, how am I supposed to slow it down so I can figure out who I am? Some of us surviving, some of us just roaming, some of us just hoping the world will move more slowly, and some of us alive, we're all gonna die one day. Yeah, some of us surviving, some of us just roaming, some of us just hoping the world will move more slowly, and some of us alive, we're all gonna die one day. Yeah, some of us surviving, some of us just roaming, some of us just hoping the world will move more slowly. Some of us alive, we're all gonna die one day. 'Cause everybody I know is growing old too quickly. And I don't wanna go, no, how am I supposed to slow it down so I can figure out who I am? Can't tell if you really mean it. Can't see what you hide. And I don't know what I'm really seeing. Don't know what I'm trying to find. Green eyes, red-handed, she can't see right through me. It's everything that I've ever wanted. See it in you. In you. It's everything that I've ever wanted. See it in you.
can see right through me. You can take what you want from my flesh and bone. But I won't forfeit my young heart and my soul. Say what you need to say, then you can be beyond your way. I'm fine, living my life right here on my own. Enemy in my grave may hold my dust and bones below, but there ain't no way in hell I'd ever think it's selling my. My life's too bright for your dark, dark heart. And my promise to write for your lies to come in my skin and rip it apart. Say what you need to say, then you can be beyond your way. I'm fine, living my life right here on my own. And in the end, my grave may hold my dust and bones below, but there ain't no way in hell I'd ever think it's selling mine. Our demons got things to say. That's okay, take it, reverse it, and maybe we'll find the truth. Our demons got things to do. And that's okay, take it, reverse it, and it make them work for you. Say what you need to say, then you can be on your way. I'm fine, living my life right, and you can hit the road. My grave may hold my dust and bones below, but there ain't no way in hell I'd ever think it's selling my soul.
Alright.
My father told me I could do anything. Don't know why I don't believe in myself. My fears they bear me, the walls that I made with my age. It's getting harder to see it. Bitch, I know doing is right, fight with the truth. Say something that means something to you. Invest in the love, hope for the best. Follow what's in the left side of your chest. Be ready for highs, be ready for lows. Dream is a dream until you go. Through the mistakes, you'll find who you are. To reach for the moon, you're going to Mars. You're going to Mars. finding ways to get through it. I'm wanting more than just breathing. My mind told me I could do anything, and I think I'm starting to see it.
But I know, forget the lies, remember the truth. See something that means something to you. Invest in the love, give it your best. Follow what's in the left side of your chest. Be ready for highs, be ready for lows. Dream is a dream until you go. Make some mistakes, don't forget who you are. Direction of the moon, you're going to Mars. We're going to Mars. Going to Mars. And I take it all back, take it all back, take it all back. I take it all back just to have you. And I take it all back, take it all back, take it all back. I take it all back just to have you. Hey, my life is real great. Feel I'm well on my way to my dreams coming true, and I'm getting to do it with you. And it feels so nice when the people sing along. They're singing along with the banjo. Did I take it all back, take it all back, take it all back. I take it all back just to have you. Yeah. And I take it all back, take it all back, take it all back. I take it all back just to have you. And one day we might have a big house with nice cars and fancy clothes and a wife with a big old diamond ring. People, they dancing along to the mando. It's some sort of hip-hop beat. Did I take it all back, take it all back, take it all back. Take it all back just to have you. And I take it all back, take it all back, take it all back. I take it all back just to have you.
my dreams coming true, and I'm getting to do it with you. I just got to Stockholm, and I'm walking on the stones. It's the middle of July, and I don't know if I'll ever make it home. If I'll ever make it home. Yeah. Made it down to Old Town with churches and shadows. I got coffee in my hand and I got no plans, but I'm never going home. No, I'm never going home. I'm not ready for this summer leave. I'm seeing Stockholm too. Not ready for this summer leave. I'm seeing Stockholm too. Who knows when? Into the water and we're sailing to the coast. It's late at night but the sun still shines. Never going home. No, I'm never going home. I'm not ready for this summer leave. I'm seeing Stockholm too. Not ready for this summer leave. I'm seeing Stockholm too. Who knows when? So if you need me, you know where I'll be. You need me. Not ready for this summer leave. I'm seeing Stockholm too. Not ready for this summer leave. I'm seeing Stockholm too. I wanna see the world change. I wanna feel love I wanna sing about hope in desperate situations. I wanna breathe life in dead lungs. I wanna fly high and touch the sun. I wanna dance where there's only sadness and bring some peace in the midst of madness. It's you and me. In these graffiti streets, still asleep. I wanna see cancer die. Wanna find truth and drown the lies. I wanna travel the world and see it change. I wanna build love where there's hate. I wanna see it. I wanna see it. It's you and me. In these graffiti dreams, still asleep. They're still asleep. But I wanna see it. Yeah, I wanna see it. I'm tired of dreaming. I'm tired of dreaming. Yeah, I wanna see it. I wanna believe it. I wanna believe in me. Graffiti trail. Some chemical reaction. There's more, some young and dumb attraction. I know it. There's more, some blind infatuation. There's more than a strong inclination. I know. You will be growing old in red. We'll begin to the good times and pain. We'll be making this go by like this. 'Cause you're mine forever. You're mine forever. You're my always. More than some immature lust. It's more than a summer crush. I know it. No, I don't need a magnified fantasy. I just need you always by me. Oh, I know it. We'll be growing old
shaking. So put the windows down and ride around with the song playing. Don't you feel like letting go? 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 By turning up the stereo to the podcast now. It's like Superman going up and away. It's like a long lost dream coming our way. It's like a midnight sun, never going down. You stay awake, you're bound to break the speakers with the sound. Don't you feel like letting go? 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 By turning up the stereo to the podcast sound. Now lean to the left and right to the right. Now shake it, do your job, shake it. Now give yourself a high five. Lean to the left and right to the right. Now shake it, do your job, shake it. Now give yourself a high five. We don't care about money, no, we don't care about binges, we don't care about honeys. Me and all my friends, yeah, we just wanna play our music and play it loud. And if you help us sing, we'll break the speakers with the sound. Don't you feel like letting go? 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 By turning up the stereo to the podcast now. Bicycle, bicycle, hey, bicycle, bicycle, hey, hey, bicycle, bicycle, hey, hey, bicycle, bicycle, hey, hey. Big old dreams that I'd write songs and everybody'd sing, and the crowds would come and scream for me on top of some platform as a king. Now all that I want is you. Now all that I want is you. And as a boy I wanted to fly away, like an astronaut disappears in outer space. And I grew up, I was captured by the lights, swinging for the fences every night. Now all that I want is you. Now all that I want is you. Now all that I want is you. work smelling like a mall. I get to school, hop out of the van, I wanna look cool to impress my friends. It's funny how life still feels like a middle school dance.
I don't care about my reputation when it comes to dancing this. I'll be a fool in this exhilaration when it comes to dancing this.
How you doing? Everybody stands on the outside while Miss Jackson dances, and Mr. Brightside, she's telling us to step in the middle, but we don't move. She says, watch it for a little.
Most of the days. And everyone else I know around seems to have life figured out. Here I am now, 25. know that I would go through storms. Know my soul is better for it. Hold my heart to face the pain. My mind to move past yesterday. No, I just wanna be a better man. No, I just wanna be a better man as I go. All my life that I'll grow like a flower that comes up from a seed that's sown. Spirit now to rise within. Rain over my carnal skin. No, I just wanna be a better man. Oh, I just wanna be a better man as I go. You know, I just wanna be a better man. You know, I just wanna be a better man. Yeah. You know, I just wanna be a better man. You know, I just wanna be a better man as I go. Hold my hands to serve and love, my eyes to see and not to judge, my spirit now to rise within, and reign over my carnal skin. It was a boring night till you walked in. And when you looked across at me, I started sweating. And I was fighting the whole night for your attention. So I just grabbed your hand and we were running. I've seen all the stars before. Here with you, I feel it more. We own the night tonight. We own the night tonight. We own the night tonight. So let's take it. We were driving fast with nowhere to go, and you were making me laugh with your head out the window. We parked the Jeep over our cherry. I was looking up at the sky and I was thinking, I've seen all the stars before. Here with you, I feel it more. feel like an outcast? Do you feel unloved? Do you feel like an idiot in the crowd with everyone? Yeah, we're all lunatics. We're all kind of weird. But when we come together, everything like that disappears. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you feel the connection? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you feel the love tonight? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you feel the connection? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you feel the love tonight? Like an orphan? Are you looking for a friend? Do you feel like a loser with really no chance to win? Yeah, 'cause we're all lunatics. Yeah, we're all strange. But when we come together, everything like that just fades away. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you feel the connection? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you feel the love tonight? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, can you feel the connection? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you feel the love tonight? Don't feel alone tonight. Don't feel alone tonight. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you feel the connection? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you feel the love tonight? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you feel the connection? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can you feel the love tonight? Hey, my life is real great. Feel I'm well on my way to my dreams coming true, and I'm getting to do it with you. And it feels so nice when the people sing along, singing along with the banjo. Did I take it all, take it all, take it all back, take it all back just to have you? And I take it all, take it all, take it all back, take it all back just to have you. I'm waking up. And one day we might have a big house with nice cars and fancy clothes and a wife with a big old diamond ring. Woo! 'Cause the people, they're dancing along to the mando and some sort of hip-hop beat. Did I take it all, take it all, take it all back? I take it all back just to have you. And I take it all, take it all, take it all back. I take it all back just to have you. I'm waking up. 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 And I take it all, take it all, take it all back. Take it all back just to have you. And I take it all back, take it all back, take it all back, take it all back just to have you. I'm waking up.
But no. Let's do this one.
When you feel so lost that you don't know where you stand, you're thinking of all the bad things that you've done. You're picking up the pieces of who you used to be, brighter than Orion, deeper than the sea. Did you see it all? Did you see the big picture? Stand in it with your back against the wall. Did you never fear to fall? When all our time is gone, gone, gone. When all my time is gone. You never missed a chance to be somebody else to the rest of this world. You lived at your own pace. I bet you never thought your life could turn out this way. When all our time is gone, gone, gone. When all my time is gone. When all our time is gone, gone, gone. When all my time picking up the pieces of who we used to be, picking up the pieces of who we used to be, picking up the pieces of who we used to be, picking up the pieces. Picking up the pieces of who we used to be. Picking up the pieces of who we used to be. My, oh my. Pushing away only gets me closer. Falling fast, can we move it slower? Your touch so sweet, I hate it when you're like this. Cut the ties, throw me in the water. Throw me in the water. Anybody else would do. Throw me in the water. I was never really good for you. I know I'm not getting out alive. Why would I even wanna try? 'Cause I'm stuck to you. 'Cause I'm stuck to you. Stuck to you. Pushing away, current's getting stronger. Sinking fast, feels like going under. Never have been here before. Always find myself coming back for more. Always coming back for more, for more, for more. Throw me in the water. Anybody else would do. Throw me in the water. I was never really good for you. I know I'm not getting out alive. Why would I even wanna try? 'Cause I'm stuck to you. 'Cause I'm stuck to you. Are we too far from the path we drew? 'Cause I just wanna see this through, but I don't wanna be a fool for you. No, I don't wanna be a fool for you. I know I'm not getting out alive. I'm not getting out alive. See, I broke my mind in half. Everybody, even I know that. And I'll talk to the papers and I'll drive back south, but it'll probably work itself out. It'll probably work itself out. See, you were someone I knew that studied your face for years, and we know how it might appear. So we made up some story that we gotta tell sometimes, and we don't ever quite get it right. But we don't wanna live some night. So I broke my mind in half. And everybody, even I know that. And I'll talk to the papers and I'll drive back south, and it'll probably work itself out. It'll probably work itself out. And we'll both catch colds come spring. And there ain't no such thing as everything. And you got reservations, and I got doubts, and it'll probably work itself out. It'll probably work itself out. It'll probably work itself out. It'll probably work itself out.
Okay, how do we do this now? We stop it? We stop it?
Be a mess, but I don't mind. Made sense to be friends for a long time, but here we are, so what do we do now? Maybe we're afraid cause we got something like this now. Good enough, but it looks like we shot it. We've already given up, do we stop it? We've been in the same cycle for a while, swimming up against the current, and we wonder why we struggle. When we stop saying what we mean when we mean it, stop having any hope when we know we believe it. We repeat it till we drop it. If we're gonna fall apart, we stop it. Stop saying that we weren't enough. Stop saying that I wasn't enough. Stop thinking you can call my bluff. Stop thinking that you're calling my bluff. You're not, cause I've gotten good at getting over you. like a firefly, open the night, alive and bright, chasing old shadows. Days grow longer and nights grow shorter as I lie free. Passing streetlights and starry moonlights and I fly free. The days grow longer and nights grow shorter as I lie free. Passing streetlights and starry moonlights and I fly free. Hey! Hey! There I see, I feel no sorrow. Chale, nikle, guche ki tarah. There I see, I feel no sorrow. Chale, nikle, guche ki tarah. Like a firefly, open the night, alive and bright, chasing old shadows. Like a firefly, open the night, alive and bright, chasing old shadows. Like a firefly, open the night, alive and bright, chasing old shadows. Like a firefly, open the night, alive and bright, chasing old shadows. Like a firefly, open the night, alive and bright, chasing old shadows. Like a firefly, open the night, alive and bright, chasing old shadows. Hey! Hey!
Don't you fall in, I'm not caught, and I was all in, you were not, you were not. Let's not fall out, come on. We tried when we said that we could, but I guess we lied. I guess we lied. We have to grow and grow apart. There's no half time or restart. There's no restart. I told you you could not falter in my eyes. still might not believe that now, but I meant it at the time. I swear that I meant it at the time. So don't you fall in, I'm not caught. And I was all in, you were not. Don't you fall in, I'm not caught. And I was all in, you were not. For once I've been listening, I've looked out and I've seen that you and I stood distance. You are just a blindfold with wool over my eyes. You're a white wolf wearing thin sheepskin. Won't you take this and make something good out of it? Won't you take this and make something good out of it? Won't you take this and make something good out of it? Won't you take this and make something? Don't you fall in, I'm not caught. I was all in, you were not. Don't you fall in, I'm not caught. I was all in, you were not. Sun going down in April. So much I need to say. Pacing around, can't stand still. Time always makes you wait. Somehow I ended up here. Steps that I can't retrace. Maybe the coast was so clear. All that was left was fate. Confessing my love completely, all of me in your hands. Not that you would forsake me, it's indifference I cannot stand. Garden can lay my head to rest and remember the things I've tried to forget. And remember the things I've tried to forget. Oh, I'm the shadow of a secret that ship is sailed, but happy being who I am. Take my body down when I die. Burn it bright, baby, baby, burn it bright. Throw me in the ocean, let the breeze carry me on. When I was just a babe, my mother said I came right away. She said I was meant to be hers. I know I let you down. I regret so much. I can hear the sounds, faint voices singing fair. I'm waiting for the sun to set so I can lay my head to rest and remember the things I tried to forget. And remember the things I tried to forget, forget. Oh, when I'm a shadow, a secret that ship is sailed, but happy being who I am. Take my body down when I die. Burn it bright, baby, baby, burn it bright. I'm a shadow, a secret that ship is sailed, but happy being who I am. Take my body down when I die. Burn it bright, baby, baby, burn it bright. Throw me in the ocean, let the breeze carry
I was always punching up above my weight till I blacked out. Soaking up the taste, the stitches on my face in the bath salt. Maybe I got what I deserved. 'Cause I was always punching up above my weight, so it's my fault. And take what you gave to me, all wrapped up in apologies. 'Cause everything I want you don't. We might be better off alone. So goodbye with the Red Bull. Wish they could have taught me how to live and learn back in grade school. On each other's team, the world was at our feet. There were no rules. At least we could say we tried. 'Cause one day this will matter even more.
wish they could have taught me how to live and learn back in grade school. Take what you gave to me, all wrapped up in apologies. It's everything I want, you don't. We might be better off alone. So goodbye with the red bull. Take what you gave to me, all wrapped up in apologies. 'Cause everything I want you don't. We might be better off alone. So goodbye with the red rose. Take what you gave to me, all wrapped up in apologies. And everything I want you don't. We might be better off alone. So goodbye with the red bull. Goodbye with the red bull. So goodbye with the red bull. And I was always punching up above my weight till I blacked out.
Wild winds can't stop me now. I am without a doubt. Slip sliding, colliding with all that you are. I'm in, you in. This is the start. Man overboard, miles from the shore, doing my best not to be found out. No one will find me under the high seas of your heart. Flares fly up above. Searchlights just for us. Slip sliding, colliding, dancing in the dark. I'm in, you in. This is the start. Man overboard, miles from the shore, doing my best not to be found out. No one will find me under the high sea of your heart. Man overboard, miles from the shore, doing my best not to be found out. No one will find me under the high seas of your heart. you in the park inside the city. You said, I don't mind if we take our time, but you know I'm not one to take chances. So I wrapped it up and set it down again. And I said, I can't help it, it's the way that I've been feeling. And I stood by your side with my hands in my pockets, wishing I'd never said anything at all. But it's alright, it's okay. When the cold wind blows, you know you better weather it away. Guess in time, it'll work out fine. I hope you're waiting for me when I cross the finish line. Most evenings here pretending you hear the little hints I drop in conversation. And I pray some nights that they don't put you off me, 'cause each and every good time happens over coffee with you. Oh, with you. Oh, with you. Oh, oh. Exhausted from all this running, and in the distance I see the ending line approaching. And I shut my eyes, clutch my alibi, while I hope you're there waiting in the distance. The critics are calling it a landslide, a standing ovation for the first time in a long time. And I shut my eyes and your lips met mine, and we talked about trading this future for our past. The same lie every day, another smile I will fake, playing alone, playing alone. I fall asleep when I wake up, and in my dreams I'll be pain in the world, pain in the world. A world I built with immense care, a parallel universe where the thought of boredom is too abstract, a contrast to the trivial, when every day seems to feel like a stage scene in a photograph. But these pictures come to life when they're portraying you. If these pictures come to life, dreams make their way into reality. I used to wish for a plane to come and take me away into the clouds, into the clouds, longing to make my escape. I was afraid I'd stay still on the ground, still on the ground. You say paint over the gray sky, when every day seemed to feel like a stage scene in a photograph. But these pictures come to life when they're portraying you. If these pictures come to life, dreams make their way into reality. rain that's pouring down. 'Cause to me this water feels like holy wine. These pictures come to life when they're portraying you. If these pictures come to life, dreams make their way into reality.
Hands up, you won't be falling on the ground. Make my heart stop. Need a moment to calm down. Your hands were my enemies at first. Say that's attempted murder, yeah. Even though you didn't mean to. Say what you want, what you need me to say. Your hands are like home to me. And if I fall, I fall head over feet. Your hands are like home. Hands back down, can't wait for our skin to touch. Make my heart blush, even though it is full of blood. Your hands were my enemies at first. Say that's attempted murder, yeah. Even though you didn't mean to. If you say what you want, what you need me to say. Your hands are like home to me. And if I fall, I fall head over feet. Your hands are like home. Say what
far we go. Life passes by like a whisper. We lost our sight too many times. Caught in a photograph we made when we were 17, watching the colors as they fade. And all the while their faces stay the same, and yet they never seem so strange to me. Yeah. Why do you say let's just run away and do it again? We'll get up early and we'll eat, get drunk on air and sea. You're calling sick and then we'll go, get back late and never tell a soul. Life passes by like a whisper. How many times can we lose sight? Caught in a photograph we made when we were 17, watching the colors as they fade. And all the while their faces stay the same, and yet they never seem so strange to me. Yeah. Why do you say let's just run away and do it again? If only I had told you more, I went and let you close that door. How do we get so lost? How do we get so far? It's not as easy as you think. You know I wouldn't change a thing. That's why we got so lost. That's why we got this far. Caught in a photograph we made when we were 17, watching the colors as they fade. And all the while their faces stay the same, and yet they never seem so strange to me. Yeah. Why do you say let's just run away and do it again? Catch your breath and let it go. The road ahead will let you know. Steady your heart, my dear. Railroad tracks and window panes, nowhere abouts the sound of rain. Calling you home, my dear. Run through the wild and through the dark. Rushing over me, it can be bought, it won't come cheap. It's all around, my dear. Throw it all into the sea, lose your mind, the rest will keep. Follow your heart, my dear. Run through the wild and through the dark. Oh, miles we go. Further in, my mind is shaking. All that we think we know is nothing at all. My heart is racing.
Maybe try and make it colder, colder than the etched in stone. When I know I just wanna be your best friend, baby, you'll find the time and place. Well, maybe I like the rhyming taste of freedom on my tongue and in my soul. On the top of that hill where I used to call home and tell my mom, my pops in hometown. Maybe I'd come back around. Maybe I'd call off the hounds. Maybe I'd live by the downs. Maybe I'd ask how it seemed. And maybe you'd tell me that you couldn't bear to see me go home. Or maybe I'd never live there at all. Excuse me, I'll try not to bump into soft subjects while the bass is pumping and the beat is jumping. And I'm gone, let me tell you where. Why do you think that I'm a stranger to my old damn friends? To make believe I want to break her. Please, I couldn't make her bend. Don't you see that it's the truth now? And I don't know what I should have done then. Do you wanna see it through now? The breakdown where it begins. Come on, I'll walk you through that door. Ooh, I'll take what I can get. The smaller I feel, the smaller I sit, the better for you and your cool confidence.
Does it make any sense?
Does it make any sense that I'm drowning? Does it make sense that the madness surrounding all that I see and all that I do is all 'cause of me? I'll blame it on you. Does it ever feel like I'll make it alright? How? People be coming up telling me I am doing fine, but I want you a plan to make it right now. People be coming up telling me I will get mine. Talking at breakneck speed, I need you to take your time. Why do you think that I'm a stranger to my old damn
torn apart. 'Cause if I leave, then I'm alive. At least that I can say is I'm choosing the right into the fire. Oh, Marie, I could use the backup. Why'd you leave to take on the weight of the world? Oh, Marie, I could use the backup. Why'd you leave to take on the weight of the world when you couldn't take on me? Oh, you couldn't take on me. You couldn't take on me. You couldn't take on me. Oh, Marie, I could use the backup. Why'd you leave to take on the weight of the world? Long ago, I was lost in this world of green. Long ago, I didn't know if I should hide or be seen. I was lost in so many ways. I was lost in you and your ways. I was lost in so many ways. I was lost in you and your ways. Till I found you. Till I found you. Long ago, I was lost in this world of gray. Long ago, I didn't know if I should hide or stay. I was lost in so many ways. I was lost in you and your ways. I was lost in so many ways. I was lost in you and your ways. Till I found you. Till I found you. Till I found you, 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 you. Till I found you.
of wine and roses. Through the fold it falters, unable to avail it. I'll be gone someday. Hold my hand and give me shelter. Let this die. Imparted wisdom, failure to go on, and all the madness that your days have. Days of wine and roses, days of wine and roses. Through the folded falters, unable to avail it. I'll be gone someday. I'll be gone someday. And would you take me? Could you give me nothing? I've been away for too. I've been away for too long, honey. I've been running. I've been running wild.
I can do it all alone. I don't need no other help. Just have the urge to get me moving to a better way to fall. If you wanna lay your head in another bed, I'll be fine. And if you see yourself in a different shell, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. So when I feel much lighter, when I'm walking on my own, do you feel the need to remind me that I need you more? Do you get to light up the dark side of my mind? Or are we living in before you'll ever find so many ways to seize the day? How can I ever choose to be the best one, to be the last someone that the heart cannot refuse? So if you need my hands, feel like a man, I don't mind. But if I see myself in a different shell, I won't lie. I won't lie. I won't lie. So when I feel much lighter, when I'm walking on my own, do you feel the need to remind me that I need you more? Do you dare to light up the dark side of my mind? Oh,
to remind me that I need you. Do you dare to light up the dark side of my mind? Or are we giving in before you ever find? I'll be fine. I'll be fine. So I feel much lighter when I'm walking on my own. Do you feel the need to remind me that I need you? Do you dare to light up the dark side of my mind? Or are we living in before you ever find? So I feel much lighter when I'm walking on my own. Do you feel the need to remind me that I need you? Do you dare to light up the dark side of my mind? Or are we living in before you ever find?
I thought that I had it in my head. The words, if I ever saw you again, I tell you everything I never did. But is it easier said than done? In spite of all of the times that I have played this moment through in my mind, and you're here and all I can do is try catch you up on the basic stuff. I drink a little more than I used to. I care a little less than I did. I sleep a little worse now without you. I get a little tired of everything. I get a little stuck thinking about you. I get a little pain in my chest. I get a little scared this'll never end. But other than that, it's all good. It's all good. And I thought that I had it memorized. I wrote and rewrote it 1,000 times. But you're here and it's all I can do to try. Small talk and the basic stuff. I drink